Last week we talked about the myth of exercise for weight loss, and that is that for most of us, exercise is pretty ineffective for weight loss, very surprisingly so. One of the main things I wanted to really talk to you guys about last week was to change the concept that we can use exercise to erase or subtract bad eating, and that weight management starts and begins with good eating. Okay, that diet far exceeds exercise when you're talking about its effects on weight management. So diet is going to be our primary strategy for weight loss, and then moving forward into weight maintenance as well. If diet is the strategy, let's talk about diet and how we can strategize to manage our weight. One of the biggest myths is that cutting calories is the cure. The very notion of labeling and next step of labeling is going to be to more promptly and more boldly display the amount of calories on our nutrition labels. I think it's a big misstep because I think it treats all calories the same, and that's the problem. It makes us think about, well, all we need to do is just back down on our calories. The problem is, on average, over a 6-month period, a moderate caloric restriction nets about 6 pounds in weight loss. And this is based on the concept of, like I said last week, there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So just as I said with exercise, if you do an exercise that would technically burn 500 calories each day, on 1 week maybe you'll get 3,500, you'll get down a pound. So same concept is, if maybe I just cut my calories by 5 and create a 500 calorie deficit for me each day, in a week I'll be down a pound. In 6 months I should be down 24 pounds. But at 6 months, most studies that show a moderate caloric deficit, say of a 500 to even 1,000, we're looking at 6 pounds of weight loss. Why is that? The problem is we're focusing just on quantity of food consumed, whereas weight management is really not just about how much we eat, but what we eat and how we eat. So this is kind of, say, the American standard type of day of eating. We have meal spikes, and with each spike of what we consume, we have a response with the blood sugar spiking, and we have a secondary hormonal response of the insulin. The insulin is our fattening hormone. Each of these meals we've done orange juice, bagel, hamburger, all heavy in the carbs. Okay, so think of it as if, say, carbohydrates is like an influx of cash. Okay, you have a bowl of cereal, you start your day in the morning, you have a bowl of cereal. Your body's like, hey, I'm in the money. You know, you're flush with cash. Okay, your sugar goes up, your carbs are ready to be burned. So your body's like, hey, let me burn as much carbs as I can. Let me stuff all the carbs into my fat cells. I got money to spare. But the problem is, as your blood sugar spikes, so does your corresponding insulin. And if you are eating a specific type of very sugary, very carby type of food that, as we'll talk, is high in glycemic index, this spike goes unnaturally high, and as a result, insulin goes unnaturally high, and it hangs around longer. But then as the sugar drops, what happens is these foods that we're eating, that like a bagel or a cereal, where the insulin ends up spiking really high and hanging around for a long time, this area under the curve, it's hanging around. What happens when insulin, which is telling us to store our carbs into fat, it's telling store, we're flush with cash. What happens when insulin is still up here, telling us, directing our body to do that, whereas our sugar starts to dip below down here? Now we have a discrepancy. The result is hunger. 3 essentials of weight loss diet. It's got to produce weight loss, obviously, right? But what I mean by that is it has to be based on the physiology of what our bodies do, as opposed to arbitrarily about calories. You know, we want to know not just how much calories you're eating, but what is our body doing with those calories. And number 2, it's got to control hunger. All right, and that's what happens when you restrict carbs. You completely obliterate that up and down roller coaster of carbs going up, carbs going down, because not only does that type of eating drive hunger, it creates the problem. So every time we do that, every time we have a meal that's flush of carbs, we perpetuate this. We perpetuate this roller coaster and this addiction, if you will, of having to get the next carb, the next meal. If we take a moderate caloric restriction where we are not paying attention to what and how we're eating, but we just basically knocked off 500 calories, but we don't change the way we eat, the problem is now you have that same sort of roller coaster effect, but now you're eating less. The result is even more hunger. The third thing is got to be sustainable. Weight management is as much about understanding human behavior as anything else. You can't just put someone on a diet and just say, go do that. You've got to have them understand why they're doing that and how to do that. And if you do that and you partner with that individual and they understand and they see the changes in their body and they get motivated, now you're getting to the sustainability. That's where you can apply the physiologic principles, combine that with the mind and the behavior, and you can achieve sustainable results. Thanks for tuning in to Weight Loss Myths with Dr. Crisco. To learn more about weight loss myths, check out my website, mythicalweightloss.com. And to learn how you can effectively lose weight and keep the weight off, check out my book, The Ping Pong Diet.